to you and your whole team later. I will also send the slides. You may have also seen in the newsletter that I sent a couple hours ago a document that says like evaluation basics. That has a lot of the same information that we're going to go over today. Just my personal suggestions. None of this is something that you're required to do an evaluation, but we give you a lot of leeway and in how you do that. So these are my suggestions, what I feel like are some good tips. Okay, so we will, oh, it's not going to click. Okay, so firstly, I want to have a quick little touch point. If you want to put in the chat a 1, a 3, or a 5 of where you feel like you are in when you think of the term program of evaluation. Like I said earlier, does it feel pretty intimidating to you at a number 1? Do you think, I know a little bit, I've done a little bit of evaluating, I'm excited to learn more, I'm optimistic that I'll learn more moving forward? Or 5 is, I'm pretty much an expert at this, I've been around the block or two, I know what I'm doing. Let me know where you think you're at in the chat. So we've got some 3s and 4s coming in. Okay, nice. Wonderful. Nice to hear we don't have any number 1s. So hopefully this will be good. Okay. So what is program evaluation? I think this is something that gets a little muddled. Obviously, every industry is going to use the term program evaluation slightly differently. But to me, in my education, we always talked about that program evaluation, the main goal is always to answer the question, did we do what we set out to do? We said we were going to run an after-school program. We said we were going to serve 50 students. We had the goal that 80% of them would improve on their state assessments. We had a goal that they would, at least 70% of our students who have low attendance would improve their attendance. Whatever it is, we have all these goals, we had these intentions, we had a plan. Did we fulfill our plan? Did we fulfill our goals and do what we said we were going to do? That is the main question we're trying to answer. So there might be other questions we end up answering along the way, but that's really the main one. The next 2 questions that are, in my mind, sub-questions to that is, what was the impact of our program? And then, how can we improve our program? That's the purpose of program evaluation. We're trying to evaluate the success of our programs to know how we can improve. So obviously you have a lot of tools around that already at your disposal. And this will be a good way to hopefully bring all of those tools together and know how we can improve for the future. For the 21st Century Grant in Utah, you're only required to do a program evaluation in year 3. Many of you have heard me say that although that is the minimum requirement, the best practice is to do it every year. The idea with having it in year 3 is that you kind of use year 1, you're building. Year 2, you can maybe improve a little bit. By year 3, hopefully you've got your feet under you. You somewhat know what you're doing. You can evaluate your program, know how to improve, and then spend years 4 and 5 improving the program. That was the thought process behind that requirement, but obviously evaluating every year helps us in that continuous improvement cycle. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is not program evaluation, and what things are very similar to program evaluation, or it's a Venn diagram. If I were better at using PowerPoint, I would have made this a Venn diagram. But so in program evaluation is not exactly the same as producing an annual report. I've gone through all of the program evaluations that were submitted this last round of continuation applications. A lot of them are really excellent documents that provide a lot of wonderful evaluation, but some of those are an annual report that has much more broad information doesn't necessarily answer our foundational questions. Also, what is not a program evaluation? I do not want you to just send me your quality tool. I do not want you to just send me a copy of your PQA. I already have access to all of that through UAN. I don't need to ask you for it. So that is a tool we can use as part of an evaluation, but those are not the evaluation I want you to send me. So a program evaluation is really the deep, detailed dive into your goals and objectives, what you did or didn't do, and how to improve. In my mind, your program evaluation is something that is for your internal use, for your internal goal setting and meetings and discussions. An annual report is something that is for external use, probably. That's something you're going to be sending out to stakeholders so that they know what you've been doing. I would say, like your program evaluation, you want to be very honest with yourself about what you're doing. That's where you might have some negative data. We actually had a bunch of kids who had worse attendance this year, or their grades are worse this year than they are last year, even though they participated in our program. That might come out in your evaluation because you need to know that information and know how to respond. Whereas the annual report, I don't want to say you should be cherry picking your data, but you have the freedom in an annual report for stakeholders externally to maybe not include some of your more negative data. You have that freedom. They're slightly different tools for slightly different purposes. They will have a lot of overlap. Maybe 70, 80, 90% of the information would be the same. Maybe you take your program evaluation, cut out a couple sections, add a couple things, and now it's your annual report. That is fine, but they're not inherently the same. I will add, many of you come from larger organizations where you are doing many different programming programs. And so you send me an annual report that has all of these different programs in it. And I'm happy to read that, and that's great. And like I said, that's excellent for all your external partners. But when I'm looking for your program evaluation, when you send me, I want to know that you evaluated your 21st century programming specifically. Whereas a whole state report for your organization might include a lot of the other work that you're doing that's not 21st century related. So feel free to send it to me. I don't mind, but I want to know that there's evidence that you've evaluated 21st century specifically. Does this distinction make sense? Does anyone have any questions about what is or is not a 21st century program evaluation? Okay, we are cruising right along. So where do I get all of the data for my program evaluation? Hopefully this is not new information for you. You should already have all of the data you need for a program evaluation. You shouldn't need to collect a bunch of extra stuff. All of your 21 APR data is very helpful. Your activities, staffing, participation, state assessment, GPA, attendance, behavior, and your teacher surveys. That's all impeccable, wonderful data to use. Your quality tools, your program quality assessment, your PQA observations. Like I said, this in and of itself is not a program evaluation, but it is one of the best tools we have to be able to objectively say, we're a quality program. We scored a 4.2 out of 5. And you can put in a document, here's many of you have several years of PQA scores. You might have several years of 21 APR and quality tools. Some of you might only have a handful, but some of you might have 10, 15 years of some of this stuff in some format. They've made small changes. But you could look longitudinally. over the last decade, we've improved our PQA scores on average by half a point or a whole point or whatever it is. The program information form, that requires a lot of good general data. And then the continuation application that you send to me usually in the fall. So you are welcome to add in anything else you have that you might think is useful. I just want to make sure there's an understanding that I don't expect you to go out and collect a whole bunch of different data and run a study and do anything super complicated. We've already required that you have the relevant data to conduct your evaluation. Okay, so types of data. When we talk about data, we have two different types. There is quantitative data and there is qualitative data. Quantitative data is descriptive data that is numerical information. So this is where we're getting totals, we're getting averages. Really just those two things, totals and averages, will probably give you most of the data you need. If you want to be extra fancy, like you've mastered totals and averages, you're good there. You could find the standard deviation of some of your averages and see if you have any big outliers who are skewing your data. I would say that's the next step. But if we're beginners, we're asking things like how much, how often, how many kids did this on average. So when you go through and you have your 21 APR GEPRA, you have a lot of those. The website will spit out a percentage for you. Out of our 50 kids, we had data available for 40 of them, and 30 out of those 40 improved on their state assessment this year. That's 75%. That is elementary school math that hopefully we can all figure out how to do in Excel. If you cannot, please let me know and I will happily come help you figure that out. But that's really the type of information we're trying to get at in a program evaluation. It doesn't need to be extra complicated. The other type of data is qualitative information. And this sometimes, the quantitative can feel scary, and sometimes in our minds, that's where we need to be in program evaluation. But qualitative information also has a lot of value. So this is non-numerical information. So this is where we're asking who, how, why. So you might put in your registration form, why are you registering your kid for after school? And then you can collect data around parents who say, I have to work, we don't have childcare, or I want my child to make more friends. I want my child to have more opportunities for different activities that I'm not able to give them. Whatever it is. So you might have a parent survey you send out every year, or maybe you have a suggestion box. You might have youth surveys. Your Align for Success rubric, that would have quantitative data, but hopefully through that process, you're also meeting with administrators, getting qualitative data. So this is where we'll put anecdotes and testimonials of parents saying that my daughter Sally had no friends and she made so many friends, or a kid saying that I learned how to play soccer at after school and now I joined a soccer team and it's really exciting. That type of information is still super useful and relevant. Okay, so now we're going to get into the written report. So we've collected all of our data from all of our different sources. You might end up, taking all of that and putting it in an Excel sheet. Like I said, running those averages and totals. If you're from a larger organization with multiple sites, I didn't say this in the slides, but it is in the document. You can submit to me one organization program evaluation. I would also love to see a separate program evaluation for each site. I'm not going to say that you have to do that, But I do think that'd be the best practice. If you have all your organization totals, then you could say, okay, for these sites, we're seeing lower participation rates. Or this site, for some reason, their grades are not as high as all of our other sites. Or our parent surveys came back not as good at this school as the other schools. Do we have any sort of issues there in our family engagement and in how we're communicating with parents? Being able to separate it out by site and by demographic is where we're going to glean a lot of data. If you, even within one site, have differing groups, maybe you have one staff who works with your K through 2, one staff works through 3 through 4, and one staff works with 5 through 6, you can even separate it down even more. So in our state assessment, we looked at all of our totals for our whole site, but if we break it down by grade or by group, do we see that our third graders did not improve as much as the rest of our grades? Or whatever it is. Is that something to do with our after school staff and the way we're programming? Is that something to do with the school day? How can we collaborate with our third grade teachers better? So I didn't go into a lot about how to actually do any of the math and run the analysis. Does anyone have questions about that? That's maybe a gap I had in my agenda today, I'm realizing. Because now we're going to get into like what maybe should be part of your written reports. Okay. If any questions come up, feel free to unmute or email me later, as always. So like I said, this is not a requirement. This is just what I think is a good practice and what I would do if I were in your situation and how I'm planning on doing our statewide 21st century evaluation. So I think a helpful practice would be that your evaluation should churn out 3 documents. The first one being your actual big program evaluation report. It'll probably take several pages. The next one would be a 1-pager that's like a program description, kind of that general information. The third one would be a 1-pager that's more impact focused. And those 2 1-pagers, you can slap them on the same page, you can front and back, you can have them separate. You don't want to be giving everyone, here's our 8-page program evaluation. No one's going to read that. You want to give them short, cute infographics. So, I'm going to go over the 1-pagers first because they have similar information to the report, but I would suggest you write your big long report first and then pull the information out of that to make your 1-pagers. But you do it however you want. So the program 1-pager, this is where we just want to give an idea of what is our program? What is this? I keep hearing about Promise South Salt Lake. What the heck is that? We can put our mission and vision. Who participates in this program? Who are we serving? We might have some demographic information. We serve programs at this site. They are K through 6. We serve this many of them. And maybe if there's room, you add that this percentage of students are white, Latino, African American, Asian, whatever. This percentage of our students are male or female or other, whatever this percentage of our students are low income, whatever you think is useful information for people to have. I'd maybe provide you don't need like an entire schedule, but it might be helpful to provide that we run 5 days a week from 3:30 to 6, or we offer summer programming from mid-September to mid-May. We offer summer, we don't offer summer, whatever it may be. Basic information like your enrollment or average daily attendance, some of the typical activities and services. We offer snack. we have recess, we do arts and crafts, we do STEM, we have homework time. So that could be a little bulleted list. You could have it in paragraph form. This is where we could also pull our 21 APR activities data and say, last year, our students participated in 172 hours of STEM and 168 hours of literacy. You can also include qualitative statements from students, parents, teachers, some little blurbs. Just say, I love coming to after school every day, whatever it is. So this is your one pager you might give to a possible funder. Maybe you take a handful of them with you when you go to a conference and people are like, who are you? What are you from? What are you doing? This is something to just give people an idea of this is what our program is. I'm shocked at the amount of people I meet that just don't know what after school is. Many adults, if they did not attend a Title I school with an after school program, they've never even really heard of it before. They don't really know exactly what after school includes. Even teachers here in Utah will say, yeah, after school is like tutoring and stuff. And they don't understand all of the breadth that we're working with. The second one pager is kind of your impact. So these two one pagers in my mind are for your external use. This is the stuff you're giving to stakeholders. So our first one pager, which is here's a general description of what we do. Here is the impact of what we do. Because we did 172 hours of STEM last year, our students showed that 68% of them improved on their math state assessment last year. So this is where we can kind of, if you have them on separate documents, you might have some information on here that is redundant. If you've got these two one-pagers like front and back, do you have visual examples? I don't at the moment, but I can send some to you. I'll see if I can find some. I will say the Utah After School Network, they put out a one pager the last couple of years. After you guys fill out the program information form, they print out a one pager of that's kind of general information. Theirs is a decent example as well. They don't have it separated out into like program description and program impact, which that's not necessary. That's just what I would do because not every audience is exactly the same. So the program impact will maybe you'll get a little bit more specific into your goals and objectives, and the results of those goals and objectives. I know a few of you submitted an annual evaluation that did have really excellent descriptions of those results. So you can put and we should be as specific as possible, although we're trying to be concise. It's really helpful to actually put the percentage, not just like students improved their grades, but 87% of students improved their state assessment score. Give as many specific quantitative data as we can. This is where we might put PQA scores. I know like Kira, I think it was at Salt Lake County. I was reading over theirs today, and they have their average of PQA scores is 4.5, which is outstanding. Not everyone understands the PQA as well as I do, but 4.5 out of 5, that means a little something to everyone. Even if you're not familiar with the PQA, you can still see that means these are quality programs. You might put your 21 APR activities in hour bands. Staffing might be helpful. It might not be as helpful depending on who your audiences are. If you're trying to create community partnerships, maybe it'd be nice to say whether or not we get a lot of volunteers or where our staff come from. Obviously, those 21 APR outcomes data would be excellent right here. on this section. How many kids are you serving? What improvements did they make? And then once again, some qualitative statements from students, parents, teachers. I will say I'm not an expert on like making a cute document that looks super professional and colorful and has great infographics. If you can do a really good job of analyzing your data and you can learn how to use like AI and ChatGPT, they might spit out a really pretty document for you. I've wondered if that is something I should learn to use better. Or you can look up like YouTube tutorials to use Canva. Canva is free. I know that's what the Utah After School Network uses to make their documents look really nice and pretty and professional looking. And I'm not an expert at it. I think it's Lauren at the Utah After School Network, so maybe ask her or look up some YouTube docs. I'm not an expert at making it look good. Any questions about these one-pagers? Okay. So the last thing is your big evaluation report. And this is the one that might seem more intimidating. So this is the one we were talking about. This is probably only for your internal use. It answers our 3 foundational questions. So did we do what we set out to do? And how can we improve our program? And that will probably, hopefully, take you several pages. For example, some of you know Emily Berry here at USBE, who worked with Robert on the IGP and PQE grants. She made a state program evaluation for each of those programs, and hers were like 8 pages. And that includes the title page and the table of contents. So really they're like 6 or 7 pages. Hers used they used the USBE logo and our style guide and whatnot. But other than that, she didn't make it super pretty in Canva. She went into Excel, made this table, clicked insert, make chart, and then copy and pasted the chart into her Word document. So it's several pages. It doesn't need to be some 30-page academic article. 8 to 10 pages, 6 to 10 pages will probably be enough. But to do real quality work, it should be more than 3 or 4. 1 or 2 pages probably is not enough to really cover everything you'll want to cover. So I went over the 2 one-pagers first because a lot of the information will be the same. So almost all the information from your one-pagers, you should be pulling from this report. So we've got program description and general program information. So like we said, we're going to say our mission and vision. We're going to say what sites we're at, what grades we serve, what's the basics of our programming, what do we do in a day, do we serve summer or not? Then we'll go into program goals and objectives. So maybe here's where you could describe, here were the original program goals and objectives from our application. We're in year 4 and those have changed slightly. Here's where our goals and objectives for this year that we made in the fall. And then talk about, did you meet your goals? We did not meet our goals. Our goal was to have 80% of our students improve their state assessment, and we only had 68 of them accomplish that. So you're going to go through each goal that you had, determine whether or not you accomplished it, explain how you measured it, all the results, and then at the end you can have conclusions and recommendations. So our conclusion is that we successfully achieved 3 out of our 5 goals. The other 2, we were close. Here's what we're going to do to improve next year. So the goal of the entire process is to determine how we're going to improve, what needs to improve, and how we're going to do that. So not all of this information in your program report is going to be relevant for external partners. Some of it will be, but some of it won't. So that's where we're going to collect a whole bunch of information, and you might end up with numerous documents, different reports. Like I said, you might create an annual report that is for external use, and that if you're a larger organization, it might include a lot of your other programming in there. That is all I have for you today. It's short. I went through that fast. Does anyone have any questions? Hopefully this was a good kind of introduction. Oh, Kira, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was clarifying too that this was a very, very helpful, Savannah, very, very helpful.
Okay.
For the evaluation and the one pager of the description and the impact, you said that basically you want it per program, or was it like the programs that were in that grant cycle? Does that make sense? Like, do you want one program, for example? I already started writing kind of creating a template of the eval, and that would have had my Kearns Junior high program on it and my elementary site, because both of those shared the grant cycle for 21st century. Does that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So did you want it separated out, or did you want them combined for the grant cycle that those two programs would be on that grant?
I would say there's kind of a good, better, best here, and I would accept all of them. So I think the ideal would be that we're evaluating our entire organization as a whole and evaluating each site individually, but knowing that the requirement is only that you are reporting in year 3, I'm only going to require that you send me your reporting documentation for those sites that are in year 3 of the grant cycle.
Okay.
Was that helpful? Did that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, because both Copper and like Copper Hills and Kearns Junior, they would be in year 3 because they're on that same grant cycle when we wrote for those two programs. So this was 3 for them. So I had already created my template to having both of those programs in that evaluation report, specifically as I'm writing the narratives and the quantitative, like having that all broken out within the eval. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that makes sense. So yeah, when it comes time to like turn that in the continue application, I'm only going to need the information for those that are in 3. But if you want to send me all of your stuff, like I'd love to look at it. I'd love to see what you're doing. So Lisa, so only people in year 3 are required to send me their report. It does ask in the continuation application to send whatever your most recent evaluation is. That normally has not been due till the fall, like October, November-ish. The last is when we've been doing it the last few years. So I don't have a hard deadline to send it yet. But I love data and I love looking at all this stuff. So if you do it and just want to send it to me and say, hey, Savannah, here's our evaluation we did, I'm happy to accept it whenever. Any other questions?
Savannah, is there a form or a template for it, or do we just create that on our own?
I do not have a template. That is something I have thought about making. So if people want me to make a template, let me know. I do have, let's see, let me stop. Oh, did I stop sharing already? Let's see where that lives. You should have received today a
big hole like this and fill it full of that stuff.
The evaluation basics document that kind of outlines everything we went over today. See if I can.
Kind of a nodule on the bottom.
In the chat. I won't let me put it in the chat. But I will email out that document. So that document did say it outlines some of the suggested sections we talked about today.
Blossoming and a mid.
So that will have
Like
at least what
Yeah.
I probably would put in a
That
template.
for this one, the last one, so they can.
Also, the Beyond the Bell toolkit has a really great template for evals as well. I got that from Brittany over at UAN. She reminded me of the toolkit, and so that's what I use so far to create my template.
That's really great.
And then I think this, again, the information you sent today or that you're sharing with us today kind of helps feed into that template really well. So
Perfect.
Kara, can you
And
share that template that you said? What was it?
oh, it was in the Beyond the Bell toolkit. Yeah, they have a really great template in there on evals that we've been using, and then I've just been looking up other examples that exist out there. But I think Savannah is providing to kind of adding in things that the template maybe forgot, things that are specific to what she's looking for. That's kind of where I'm trying to bridge the gap.
The After School Alliance also has a whole page around evaluation. I don't think they have a template, but they had some decent information. There was a question from South Cache, I think.
No, I was just reacting and asking. You said
Oh.
there was a presentation, right? I never saw any presentation.
I sent out a document in the newsletter today, so Michael Torrey would have received that.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I asked because you said, am I still presenting or something like that? I thought you were presenting. No, sorry.
Was I not sharing my presentation this whole time?
No. Well, at
Oh.
least I couldn't see anything, just
Oh,
faces.
shoot. I had a PowerPoint going the entire time, guys. How
Oops.
embarrassing. Well, I'll send you the slides after with the recording and you can read them. I'm so sorry about that. I had slides. I'm sorry you were just sitting here watching me talk for half an hour. Any other questions? Okay, well, I will let you all go. Thank you for coming and participating. Like I said, I'll send out the recording and slides and documentation for this webinar, as well as the one, the 21 APR webinar from 2 weeks ago. I'll send all of that out. If you don't get it, there are some names in here today I don't recognize. So if you don't receive that documentation, figure out who in your organization is actually the person that gets my newsletter every week and is on my email list. Or if you would like to be on my email list, please let me know. I'm happy to add anyone. So I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Savannah, do you have 2 seconds? It's Minna Copeland to chat just offline.
Yeah.
Okay.